Right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Str8 Talk with Stevie Mack. I'm your host, Stevie Mack, aka Brother Doc. This man is really like a co-host to me. I mean, he's not really a guest. He frequents, he supports. He's been to the God Lab. He's jammed with us before. None other than my friend and my brother, Brother Dion Q Turner. What's up?
Hey, shalom, Matt. What's going on?
Shalom, brother. All right, so let's just get into it. You know, and I know we dabble in the scrolls. We read the scriptures. And for those who don't know what we're talking about the Bible, right? We dig into the Word.
Absolutely.
And we talk about identity. We talk about awakening.
Absolutely.
Brother Nick Cannon got into a world of trouble, and I told you how I felt about it. For those who don't know, we'll play the comments right here.
The 39-year-old host facing criticism for his comment, also accused of perpetuating an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory.
The Rothschilds, centralized banking, the bloodlines that control everything even outside of America.
So Nick Cannon, he didn't say anything wrong. It's just that Nick Cannon, to my understanding, he was taking some classes. And of course, when you get any type of information that makes you feel good, because you got to remember, we're given, people that look like you and I, we're given a slave narrative. So as a slave, you're seen as nothing, you're property. So
Right.
Anytime you find any type of information that puts you back into antiquity, right, you're going to feel good about that. And, you're going to jump out the window because you want people to feel as good as you're feeling.
Right.
And he was persecuted for something like that. And let this be clear as well. I know for a fact that, and it's factual because, we all go through it. By no stretch of the imagination, when these young brothers are bringing up, referencing Farrakhan, are they agreeing with everything that Farrakhan says? Remember, I am not a member of the Nation of Islam.
Right.
Right? I don't agree with everything that Farrakhan says.
Right.
What I will say is this. When you're young, like Malcolm X, like Khalid Muhammad. These are individuals that are out of the Nation of Islam. And even Malcolm went other, right, and formed his own. Nonetheless, in this country, the way it's presently designed, the so-called black man is constantly beat down and made to feel less than, and he's oppressed.
That's true.
So when someone is giving you something and someone is speaking to what you may deem to be power, and it's truly a perception of power, you're going to start to feel good. And that's why people are constantly referencing Farrakhan, and they're saying his name like that. And he's the only one that's given that particular stance outside of who some may see as bourgeois Negro, which would be like, Reverend Al Sharpton and let's say Jesse Jackson for argument's sake.
Yeah.
Those are individuals that,
More mainstreamed, if you will.
Right. Palatable for people, right? So when these individuals are mentioning Farrakhan, Malcolm X, now everybody can say Malcolm X. When Malcolm X was living, nobody liked the dude.
Right.
And so, and it's gonna be probably the same way when it comes to Farrakhan. And what they did right now, they just straight up got rid of Khalid Muhammad.
Yeah.
So that's what Nick is talking about. That's what Professor Griff was talking about. That's what Deshaun Jackson was talking about. These dudes feel good that someone has a backbone and is speaking to the power structure. That's all that is. These dudes that I don't know. Nick is not a member of the Nation of Islam. He's not. You know what I'm saying? And I don't even think Deshaun Jackson or any of these guys are. But it feels good as a young black man to see someone speaking to the pain, of people. And not all of us are given a platform.
That is true. That is true. So you brought out some good points, because I know for years, I've listened to Minister Farrakhan. I was a registered member of the Nation of Islam. I studied in Ma 7C. And I got some good teachings, right? And I appreciated what they stood for, especially as a young man in Brooklyn, New York, seeing drugs, seeing all this crazy things. You wanted that voice, right? Do I agree with everything in the doctrine of theology? Not necessarily, right? And as I got older, but I could still appreciate a bridge that helps me get over, right? I can
Right.
still appreciate a voice in the wilderness. Whether I agree with everything that voice is saying,
Correct.
I hear you. So let's talk about it. So, and I know people have umbrage with Minister Farrakhan, Honorable Louis Farrakhan. They talk about anti-Semitic comments, right? And I want to know who is in that target? Who are the Jews that they're referring to? Like, I'm always like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe the average not foul Jew because it seems like he's struggling and catch a heck like me too. Who are you guys referring to? And I think maybe if people said that more, I know maybe not. I know for me, if someone was saying the blacks, I'm like, now you gotta be specific. Now if they say no, these, and they start naming names. This group, the 1% with the money, they're planning to kill, or the drug dealers, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let's help demystify that, because I feel that that is thrown around a lot. And if I was a Jewish person, I probably would be offended too. So let's demystify. Who are we talking about? Who are they referring to?
So these particular Jewish individuals, these Caucasian Jewish individuals, because I'm gonna say Caucasian Jewish individuals, because people like to say Black Jew, right? And I think that's an oxymoron. We could deal with that at another topic on another time. So the Jewish individuals that are being spoken of are the Rothschild family, the Lobes, the Warburgs, who are the Kuhns, Kuhn, and I'm gonna just read you a couple of pieces because this is what Nick, I don't want to say should have done. Maybe he didn't have the books, right? Maybe he didn't know this stuff and heard it and didn't do more research. But this is what's being talked about, and I'm reading because some people are dismissing that this thing, and this is not a blanket statement where it's saying that all Jews are bankers and all stuff like that. Like people would be asinine to think that they're talking and persecuting all Jews.
Right.
It doesn't make sense.
Right.
So I'm coming out of a book. It's called Pawns in the Game.
William Carr, right?
William Guy Carr.
Gotcha.
Right? Now, in this particular book, everyone should buy it, just so that we don't stumble across this anti-Semitism stuff, right? I'm going to read you a couple of things. It says, I'm going to start first paragraph, and I'm going to jump around, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up another book just to connect dots, because there was a gentleman with Charlemagne and that guy, Schultz, and this other guy was saying, like, they're talking about some conspiracy, and I don't even know, if Chase Bank, has anything to do with it. And I'm gonna show through literature, and this is just what it is, because people do research as well, and not everyone has to have a PhD that comes from the compulsory system, right? The Jewish Encyclopedia says Edom is in modern Jewry. Now we'll deal with Edom later, because we got Edom, we got Ashkenaz, we got Khazar, Shem. It's just a plethora of names, and we'll deal with that. So it says, the Jewish Encyclopedia says Edom is in modern Jewry. This is very important admission because the word Edom means red. History reveals that a Jewish goldsmith, Amschel Moses Bauer, tired of his wandering in Eastern Europe and decided in 1750 to settle down in Frankfurt on the Main in Germany. He opened a shop or counting house in the Judenstrasse district. Now the Judenstrasse is the ghetto of Germany, all right? It says over the door of his shop, he placed as his sign of business a red shield. It is of the great importance to remember that the Jews in Eastern Europe who belong to the revolutionary movement based on terrorism had also adopted the red flag as their emblem because it represented blood. Amschel Moses Bauer had a son born in 1743, and he named him Amschel Meyer Bauer. The father died in 1754 when his son was only 11 years of age. The boy had shown great ability and extraordinary intelligence, and his father had taught him everything possible about the rudimentary principles of money lending business. So now I'm going to just move on. That was page 25 of Pawns in the Game. So now, when you move on to page 26, it reads, the red shield was still proudly displayed over the door. Knowing the secret significance of the red shield, Amschel Mayer Bauer decided to adopt it as the new family name. Red Shield in German is Rothschild. And thus the house of Rothschild came into being, right? So now that's the Rothschild family. So now let me just give you the connections to the banking in the United States, because I want people to understand this. So now when we go to, let's look at page 50, right? It says the agents of the international bankers organize active lobbying. They use intimidation, but despite all their efforts, paragraph 5 of section 8 of the first article of the new American Constitution read, Congress shall have the power to coin money and regulate the value thereof. So now the Rothschilds go back as far as, Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson, when they were having their arguments over central banking, right? Now, when you begin to delve deeper into this international banking, you're gonna come across some names, right? So we're gonna look at 60 and 63, right? It says, as a result of the London conference, J.P. Morgan and Company of the New York Drexel Company and Philadelphia Grenfell and Company of London, Morgan Harris and Company of Paris, M.M. Wahlbergs of Germany, and Amsterdam, and the House of Rothschild were all affiliated. I'll read that again. As a result of the London conference, J.P. Morgan and Company of New York, Drexel and Company of Philadelphia, Grenfell and Company of London, Morgan Harris and Company of Paris, M.M. Wahlbergs of Germany, and Amsterdam, and the House of Rothschild were all affiliated. They were all affiliated, right? So now, this is how they get into the movies. This may blow people's mind. It says, last to arrive were Paul Wahlberg and Benjamin Strong. Wahlberg was so wealthy and powerful by this time that he is said to have inspired the famous comic strip Orphan Annie, in which Warbucks is featured as the most wealthy and influential man in the world, a man who can, when he so wishes, use superhuman or supernatural powers to protect himself and his interests. Benjamin Strong came into prominence during the preliminary manipulations of high finance, which led to the Wall Street panic of 1907, right? So now you're saying to yourself, wait a minute. So was Nick Cannon and them right when they were talking about international bankers? Absolutely they were. Here is a book that outlines that. And then if you want to go into what these dudes were forming, we're going to get into this, right? To the secret of the Federal Reserve. This is by Eustace Mullins. So now the Rothschilds are tied into the creation of what we call the Federal Reserve. I'm going to read some excerpts out of here, and then I'm going to jump back just to confirm that these individuals are into the Federal Reserve System. Because remember, the Federal Reserve System is not part of the United States government. They're separate from them. They're separate, okay? You go to page 1. It's called Jekyll Island. So what's going on is there are individuals that I just read to you in Pawns in the Game. Now, when you go into this book, they're going to actually take you on the trip from Jekyll's Island, right? And they're leaving New Jersey from Hoboken, and then they're going to Jekyll Island in Jersey, and then in Georgia, and then I'm going to show you some more out of this book. And this one is a Federal Reserve book. So it says, on the night of November 22nd, 1910, a group of newspaper reporters stood discontentedly in the rail station at Hoboken, New Jersey. They had just watched a delegation of the nation's leading financiers leave the station on a secret mission. The delegation had left in a sealed rail car with blinds drawn for an undisclosed destination. They were led by Senator Nelson Aldrich, head of the National Monetary Commission. President Theodore Roosevelt had signed into law the bill creating the National Monetary Commission in 1908, after the tragic panic of 1907. And we already told you that Strong, in the last book, was part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Had resulted in the public outcry that the nation's monetary system be stabilized. Aldrich had led the members of the commission on a 2-year tour of Europe. The Rothschilds are in Europe, spending some $300,000 of public money. He had not yet made a report on the results of his trip, nor had he offered any plan for banking reform. Accompanying Aldrich at the Hoboken station were his private secretary, Shelton A. Pyatt, Andrew Assistant Secretary of Treasury and Special Assistant to the National Monetary Commission, Frank Vanderlip, President of the National City Bank of New York, Henry P. Davis, Senior Partner of J.P. Morgan Company, and generally regarded as Morgan's personal emissary, Charles D. Norton, President of Morgan's dominated First National Bank of New York. Joining the group just before the train left the stations were Benjamin Strong, also now as Lieutenant of J.P. Morgan, and Paul Warburg, a recent immigrant from Germany who had joined the banking house of Kuhn, Loeb, and Company, New York, as a partner earning $500,000 a year. And that was big money back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So now, what does that have to do with banking?
Right.
You had the Siegel, Glass, and Aldrich Act. That became the Federal Reserve Banking Act, right? Mm-hmm. So now, where can we find that? I'll show you here. It says, it took years to discover what happened that quiet weekend. A secret meeting was held on Jekyll Island, Georgia. This hideaway was owned by J.P. Morgan and a small group of his financial affiliates. The business discussed at the meeting referred to was ways and means to ensure the proposed legislation to curb financial racketeering and monetary manipulation in the USA be sabotaged, and legislation favorable to those attending the secret meeting be substituted to achieve these two important objectives was no easy task. Mr. Warburg was asked to suggest solutions. His advice was accepted, right? So it says, to make a long story short, Aldrich, Warburg, and Company drew up a monetary legislation which Aldrich ultimately presented at the work of his special committee. He had it passed by Congress in 1913 under the title the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, right? Mm-hmm. In 1914, the Federal Reserve System consisted of 12 banks, which had bought $134 million worth of Federal Reserve stock, according to congressional records on May 29, 1939. They made a profit of $23,141,456,197, right? Mm-hmm. Now that's that. So when you hear these names, all of these names are tied to the Rothschild family because many of them were agents. So they were agents out of Europe coming over to the United States to take over the monetary system here in the United States. And the setup is so beautiful because you got to remember the Federal Reserve Bank, it cannot be audited by anyone. And the chairman outlasts presidents. They have 14 years.
Wow.
So you can't ever touch these guys.
Right.
So now when you see what's going on today, this economic collapse, it has to do with the Federal Reserve. A lot of people have been trying to take down the Federal Reserve Bank because the Federal Reserve Bank does not have anything whatsoever to do with the United States government. It just doesn't. And if people were to look at Title 12, Section 411, and it goes into the debt and how a debt can be paid off. You have to have the ability to look at the Constitution of the United States, Article 1, Section 10, 2, Clause 2, and what it tells you is you cannot pay off a debt. The only way you can pay off the debt is with gold or silver coin. Then what people have to do is they have to use what you have, the Black's Law Dictionary. Because one of these guys on here said, I don't even know what they're talking about when it talks about the fake dollar. For all of those people that was listening to Charlemagne and that gentleman speaking, I'm going to tell you what was being said. When they're talking about the dollar, the Federal Reserve notes are not money. Legally, it is not money. The definition of money is gold or silver coin. Right? That's what it does not embrace notes. Evidence of debt. Bonds of real estate.
And it tells you
the Federal Reserve note.
it says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private.
So now when you read that, you have to go into the USC codes on banking, and that's going to be housed inside of Title 12. When you go into Section 411, it's going to read, and I'm paraphrasing that, the Federal Reserve notes are to be handled by Federal Reserve agents. These Federal Reserve agents then take these and give them to Federal Reserve banks. Now, once this stuff comes back, the Federal Reserve notes, they're then given to the Treasury Department for legal tender, right? It's going to be lawful money. So they're going to exchange Federal Reserve notes for lawful money. The lawful money is gold or silver. So when people talking about debt, the debt of this country can't ever be paid off because it's private bankers. That's what people don't understand. So that's what Nick was. That was above.
That's what we're talking about, and that's what he's referring to, right?
Yeah.
So this is powerful. This is dense.
So real quick.
All right.
The people that we're talking about are the Lobes, the Coons.
Okay.
We're talking about the Rothschilds. We're talking about the Schiffs, right? These are the banking family. This is not broad stroking again. All Jewish people. Now, if they want to take that to be their stance, listen. They said that there's 48% of individuals that look like you and I locked up, right? But I wouldn't dare say like, yo, every black, that means every black person is locked up. You understand what I'm saying? Like, you would have to be a straight ass. To think that someone is broad stroking individuals like that. They're the ones that's doing this broad stroking. Straight up and down. Like, and just before we finish, like, there's a lyric that Jadakiss says in
All About the Benjamins?
All About the Benjamins.
Yep.
Bag of chips like Hebrews do what we do, right? Immediately, you'll never hear the Hebrew reference.
What was that about? Why was that? I was confused.
Because it's seen as anti-Semitic. But
Is slur?
Yeah, because of the Hebrew, stack chips like Hebrews like we do, right? So when he's saying this, it gets nixed out because it's seen as an anti-Semitic remark. But what if Jadakiss actually was reading? Jadakiss said to himself, "Though I want to pay homage to my ancestors." Right? What if Jadakiss knows that the Medici family are his ancestors?
Who are they?
What does the Medici have to do with this? Well, the Medici were a dark family, right? They look like you and I. They were a banking family.
Mm.
And this same banking family is the one that was funding. They're the ones that gave the Rothschilds their starts. Because remember, the Rothschilds, they were money lenders in the Judenstrauss, in the ghetto.
Mm.
So they essentially, what were they? They were in a bank. You know what they were? They were check cashers. That's what they were.